Welcome back, everybody, to another season of FHP. This is season 2 underway.
McKinnon, right side on, scores! Pasternak, Marchand, he'll drag it right in for a chance. He scores! Dancing in, Holy Mckinnon, what a save! Made by Marc-Andre Fleury. Unbelievable by Austin Matthews. A complete turnaround. We're going to Boston, baby!
Let's go, Hockey Nation. Another season's upon us. Welcome back to the FHP podcast. This is now season 2 for us. Starting today, October 13th. New season started October 12th. Really excited to be back. Obviously, I'm your co-host here, Antonio Capos, alongside I'm your host, Antonio Capos, alongside co-host Ben Rutledge and lead analyst.
Oh man, am I excited. The Leafs dropped the puck on their season tonight at 7 against Montreal in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena, 100% capacity. Leafs Nation will be rocking tonight. Wish I was going, unfortunately, can't go. But tying this into really our opening segment here, Mitch Marner is a game time decision for that game, as well as Alexander Ovechkin is a game time decision for his opening game against the New York Rangers tonight. A few other notes on the injury front. Austin Matthews is out for the first week of the season. Sheldon Keefe confirmed on Tuesday of this week. It's a tough blow, but I think you have to monitor that situation right now. I think you just leave it. You don't really have to trade for anyone because it's only 1 week. Odds are you have a serviceable backup center. You're just going to have to lean on your kind of second, third, fourth round picks. On the other note, Nathan McKinnon tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday afternoon. That's a tough blow because that puts him out at least 10 days in COVID protocols as well. They have a very lengthy return to play process as it's been, studies have shown that players who test positive for the virus tend to develop an irregular heartbeat if they restart vigorous activities. So the NHL has put in a very long return to play process as there should be. So that puts McKinnon roughly out 2 to 3 weeks. And I think at this point, you really have to trade for a center because odds are if you drafted one that high, you're going to have faded them later in the draft. So I think you have to go out and target one. Luckily, we're talking about buy low, sell high candidates today. So stay tuned for that, and we'll tell you which buy low centers you should be grabbing to fill that role.
Right, and just moving on to our signings, we had 2 notable ones for fantasy. So first of all, we had Barkov re-signing with Florida. I was going against what Ben and I were thinking. We thought he was going to go out in the free agency at the end of the season this year and break up that Panthers team, send them back into a rebuild. Instead, it's confirmed that their core is likely going to stick together of him, Ekblad, Huberdeau, Spencer Knight, and they're just probably going to be building around that core for the next 3 to 5 years while they have Barkov locked up, trying to keep going for this cup. It's a new look for Florida. As you know, they don't have many fans, so they haven't been able to put together a really good playoff team in a while. And yeah, I think they have to hope that Bobrovsky gets his stuff together this year. And otherwise, Spencer Knight breaks out and being a good starter. And if they can, I think that this team's going to be a team that can possibly go far in the playoffs. Moving on, we have Nick Suzuki resigning. He went 7.875 over 8 years. The signing we think is a little bit too high for him, especially because he's had 1 year of like solid stats. And even though you've gotten to the finals with him, it's not like it was solely his doing. That was really a team effort this year that showed that the Canadians showed that really it's a team sport and anybody can get to the finals. You know, they had a little bit of puck luck. Carey Price was solid in net. Philip Deneau was probably the best defensive center in the playoffs last year. I don't think Suzuki was really their guy in the playoffs last year, so I think it's a bit of an overpay. However, they did lock up their franchise center for years to come. Probably him and Caulfield are going to be their duo. You know, a lot of people like them, especially Habs fans over here in Ontario. So I think that's a good signing for them, but I think it's too high on the dollar amount.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ozone. This is the first Ozone of the 2021-2022 season, and everybody got to witness some history. We saw the Seattle Kraken play the first game of their season. Ryan Donato scores the first goal of Seattle Kraken's franchise's history, which is a very cool thing to see. Danton Heinen scores the first goal of the NHL season. And the Kraken's top line, McCann, Eberle, Schwartz, they looked really good. The rest of the team looks solid, but the system still needs to work, obviously. I don't think anyone was really expecting the first game for them to come out and, look perfect. But honestly, especially in those first three shots, within the first three shots of the game, there was 2 goals scored for Vegas. It was looking really bad. Grubauer coming from Avalanche, one of the better teams in the NHL, clearly an incredible defense. And then you have to play with Seattle. That's quite the leap in surrounding cast around you. Like that's a big discrepancy there. And Grubauer, despite not looking great statistically, I was really impressed with the way he was able to face adversity and go down early, look really bad early. I'd say only one of the goals were his fault, but that's neither here nor there. Grubauer bounced back really well. It was looking really bad, and then he came back. Made it a very close game. Looked like it was a winnable game for sure. And a game that I'm pretty sure everyone thought was just very winnable. The Lightning against the Penguins. Normally you just assume the Lightning's going to win. But when the Penguins have that roster with so many injuries and just so many hindrances, so many crucial players for that team just not going to be able to play, how's this game even close? It's super impressive. A 6-2 win. Penguins look really good. They battled through injury, and the Lightning, they don't look good, but it's one game into the season. Not going to read too deeply into anything. It's not like Grubauer's washed or the Lightning are not going to make the playoffs or anything like that. It's just really good to watch hockey. And thank you, everyone, so much for watching. This has been the Ozone.
Welcome back, everybody, from the Ozone. So we're going to go through our start sits and our buy low, sell high here. Let's start with the Leafs series. Do you want to cover that, Ben?
Yeah, so I got the Leafs. So their lineup was officially announced. So looking at the lineup, Marner, if he plays, obviously is in. Tavares is in. Nylander's in. Riley's in. Campbell's in. And I think Sandin's in for that power play potential. Then on the top line, they have Ritchie with Tavares and Marner. So I think Ritchie's a start for tonight. As well, they come back with Bunting, Kerfoot, Nylander. So I think that both Kerfoot and Bunting, especially Bunting, possibly Kerfoot, but definitely Bunting is also a start. I think Muzzin is a sit to start tonight. Hall's a sit. And, looking down the lineup, Kasha, Spezza, those guys they have to all be sits because they're just not going to get enough action. For the Canadians, I think Allen is an easy sit for me. Petrie's in. Gallagher is, I think that's what you have to watch, but I'm leaning towards sit. Anderson, again, one you have to watch, but I'm leaning towards start. Caulfield's in. Toffoli's in. Suzuki's in. Dvorak's in. On defense, Romanov maybe, but I think Petrie has a number one power play. So other than Petrie, I think you're not starting on that defense and you're not starting Allen.
All right, and moving on to our next, we're going to move on to the Rangers Capitals series. So for them, let's start with the Capitals. Obviously, they're down Ovi and Backstrom, so you're not going to be wanting.
Ovi's a game time decision, as we mentioned before. It's still announced whether or not he's in.
I'm not taking that chance. So if you have somebody to start over him, start them. Obviously, if you don't have anybody else to start over these players, you're going to start players. Just to get the possible 0.25 points that they might give you. But however, if you're in a league where you're set to 6 forward positions, you're not going to be wanting to start Obi just because you're likely going to have somebody that's going to give you guaranteed points.
Just to jump in there, you see on the news, it says that he practiced. So that generally means that they're going to play. So I think that's when you have to watch it. When they say game time decision, it'll be announced around 6, and no other games will be going before then. So I think Obi is a start. You drafted him high, so I think he's a start. Even if even if you don't have the ability to check your lineup, you drafted him as odds are your second or third round pick. You have to start your second or third round pick. Same with Marner. If they don't play, you possibly lose out on, I don't know, 2 points at max from some guy that you're going to start over him. But I just think Ovi is too hard to sit.
I mean, that's true. It's also opening night, so they might want to give a show. So we'll see what happens. Moving on, Kuznetsov's going to be a start. John Carlson's going to be a start. I'm probably not going to be starting either of their goaltenders. Moving on to the Rangers, obviously, I'm not going to be. Oh, sorry. For the last guy on the Capitals, you're going to want to be starting Wilson, especially in Bangos leagues, because he's going to be getting hits. I would watch it, though, because it seems that Wilson and Reeves might go tonight. So those penalty minutes might be up if you have negative points for penalty minutes in your league. For the Rangers, I have Zibanejad in. I have Kreider as a fringe starter. I have Fox in. I have Shesterkin in. And I think those are the main guys that you're going to be wanting to start in your smaller roster leagues. However, there's going to be more fringe starters, like you're going to have possibly Lafreniere.
That's Antonio's dog there, but so that he really covered everything for the Rangers. So I'll quickly go in and cover just the remaining games here. There's only 3 left. For the Jets, all the big boys are in. I think you've got to start Scheifele. Sorry, Scheifele is suspended for this game. That's important to know. So Ehlers, Connor, Wheeler, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Pionk, Hellebuck. Those are all the starts for me. And on the Ducks, I think you start Zegras, you start Raquel, you maybe start McTavish. And on defense, you probably start Cam Fowler, and that's it. And you bench Gibson against this high-powered Jets team. And then moving on to Chicago, Colorado. McKinnon is out, as we mentioned, but you start Rantanen, Landeskog, Kadri, Burakovsky, I think, is a start. Gerard, Taves is questionable. If Taves plays, he's in. Devon Taves, that is. Makar's obviously a start, and Kemper is a start. And for the Blackhawks, Fleury, Kane, Taves, Doc, DeBrincat, Jones, all of them are the starts. There's really no one else I would really debate starting. Again, if you have open lineup spots and people on their bench, you start them like that. But these are just like the main people that you want to be starting if you have to make hard decisions. And finally, Vancouver, Edmonton.
Yeah, I think for Oilers, you're going to have McDavid, Draisaitl, obviously RNH, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You're going to have probably Puljujarvi in. You're going to have Hyman in. You're going to have Barry in. You're going to have Nurse in. You're not going to have their goaltender in. That's a definite no. For the Canucks, you're going to have Pedersen. You're going to have Hughes. You're going to have Garland. You're going to have JT Miller. You're also going to have Horvat. All the big boys. And I would
start Höglander too.
Right. Nils Höglander. And I think that you take a chance and start Demko tonight. I'm definitely going to be starting him because even though I think the Oilers, like McDavid's probably going to come out and have a big game, I think that they're going to limit it to probably like 1 or 2 goals, even against this high-powered offense.
All right, so that'll be it for the start sits. Again, as we mentioned earlier, this won't be a regular occurrence. We will be sending an episode every Saturday, so we will give you start sits for Saturday because that's the biggest game of the week. But otherwise, we will also post the main people you want to be starting, like the people who are fringe who we think are going to have a big week and who you should start, and the people who are fringe we think are going to bust, who you want to sit. So now moving on to buy low, sell high. As much as you think that this is hard to do, this is a good time to capitalize on a player that you like because they may not be thinking of them as highly. So I will run through my sell highs, then Antonio, then I'll go my buy lows, and Antonio run his buy lows. So my sell highs are Ovechkin, as we've mentioned before. His ADP is really high. You took him high. He still is a big name value. I think you can trade him for a decent haul. Secondly, Marchessault. He scored a goal last night. It was a pretty goal. I think people, if they watch the highlights, are thinking, oh man, he looks like he's returning to his 2018 form. He played 15 minutes of ice time. I don't think you can rely on that. Their big boys are Stone, Patch, ready. He doesn't get number 1 power play. I don't think that Marchessault is going to be a consistent start. And if you can sell high on him for someone better than him or someone who someone who values him really high, that's when you go do that for him. Next, I have Darcy Kemper. I think Antonio, you might disagree with this, but I just think that he has a ton of bust potential on him. And I think, again, he was really hyped up in the offseason. If you can go out and get a Varlamov, you can go out and get a Fleury plus, probably with Fleury, or you can go get a goaltender who's maybe a lateral step plus something because people think the high win potential. I would go do that any day of the week. And finally, I have Jack Campbell. This hurts me as a Leafs fan because I love the guy, but I think he's being a bit overhyped for playing at best 60% of the games. I think if you have Mrazek Campbell, you hold. But other than that, I think Campbell's got to be a sell high because if you can get a true consistent number one, Demko, someone around there, Saros, Pedersen, I think you go do that because those are the true number ones on their team and they won't have to split. You might end up losing the trade because Campbell has a ton of potential to be elite. But I think it's the smart move to trade him away now while he still has a ton of value. Not saying he's going to lose some, but just as a high risk player.
Definitely. Moving on to my sell highs, I have one for each position. So center, winger, D, goalie. So first of all, I have Crosby. He's getting drafted really high, and especially with him being out with this injury to start the season, it's going to hurt his value. So obviously that might be one of the pieces that people are going to argue with you when you're trying to trade him. Just remind them, like, there's a lot of people that still value him as a top 5 center in the league. Obviously we don't. We don't think he's going to meet that top 2 round potential, especially with this injury. So to try and move him, a good option to get back from him might be if somebody undervalues Barkov, if somebody undervalues Pedersen, those are good options. You can probably get Pedersen plus a bench piece. Those are good moves for him. Moving on, I had Ovi as well, but I'll move to Gensel. I'm not liking that Pittsburgh team right now because both Crosby and Malkin are out. So down in the middle, their first line center, I think, is Rust. Or no, it's Heinen.
Jeff Carter and Heinen are their 2 sub centers. I'm pretty sure Bluger, some combination of that.
Either way, I don't want any part in that offense right now. That includes Letang a little bit. Those players are going to take a hit, especially with Gensel being out with COVID to start the year. Same as McKinnon, he'll be out probably 2 weeks. So if you can get something high for him, I know that a lot of people draft him probably in the second round range, around 16. I think it's his ADP. So if you can grab somebody like a what's a good option for you? If you can get Nylander for that value, I'm happy. Honestly, I would be happy to get Nylander or Marner back from.
I'm trying to think, like Aaron maybe falls Zibanejad even. I know it's different position, but Ehlers, any of those guys.
Moving on, I'll go to D. I think Yossi is your first sell high here. He's coming off of year before last, he was the Norris. Last year, he was still in the conversation. I think he's on a struggling Nashville this year. Their offense is going to go really poorly because Arvidsson's leaving, their top goal scorer. And I think that really they spread the points, but even more so, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year, meaning that his points are going to be down. And he's likely not going to put out that production in fantasy. He never really was an elite fantasy defenseman. He was good, but he was never quite elite. And I think that's just going to dip even further. So if you can grab somebody like a Dougie Hamilton or a Charlie McAvoy or a Neil Pionk for him, that's great value. Finally, for a sell high, Philip Grubauer, if you still have him, I know that he had a bad night last night. I think you wait for his next game. If he has a decent game, if they grab the win, if he gets positive points, you ship him off right away. And try. I would grab Darcy Kemper for him if you could. I know Grubauer went pretty high in drafts. I know you don't like Darcy, but I like him as a goaltender, and I think he did really well on Arizona considering their terrible defense. And look, Arizona's bad, even worse this year, especially since he's on our favorite. Like I have him, the Avalanche making the finals. You have them making the conference finals. It's a good team, good offense in front of them. It's going to get him lots of wins. Let's move over to the buy low.
All right, so my 4 buy low candidates. First, Robin Lehner. He didn't look great last night. He got the win, so if people are just looking at points, it'll be a bit hard. But just remind them, pull up the save percentage, goals against average. He didn't do terrific last night, but I expect that to change. Next is Andre Palat. Him, like many Tampa Bay players, struggled. And I was thinking, like, there has to be a buy low opportunity here, right? Stamkos did well. Hedman did well. They got some cheap points at the end. Point, no one's going to flip Point or Kucherov. But I think Palat, who didn't do that well, people might think they were already a bit worried about drafting him, I think. And I think you can go in and grab a nice, solid, very high winger 2 or even low winger 1 for good value. Next, I have Nathan McKinnon. I think people might be a bit worried that he's out 2-3 weeks with COVID. Oh, I don't know what he's going to be like when he returns. If you can go in there, flip Draisaitl for him. You can go in there and flip Rantanen for him. You can go in there and flip Panarin for him. Anyone like that, I think Marchand for him. I think you win that trade. Try it. It might not work, but it's worth a shot because someone might be freaking out that they lost their best player for 2 weeks. And finally, Morgan Geekie. This isn't really a buy low because I doubt anyone owns him. But watching the Seattle game last night, he looked terrific. He loves to shoot the puck. He's on the number 1 power play with McCann, Eberle, Dunn. That's also important. No, it was Giordano. But Dunn looked good on the power play, another thing to note. But I think Geekie scored a goal last night. He actually has a very good career goals for. And I think he's worth an add, in my opinion. I've been debating adding him in a bunch of my leagues. I just don't like to drop anyone yet. But I think if you already have somebody you weren't really thrilled about, going in and grabbing Geekie, or you have McKinnon, you put him on IR, go grab Geekie. It's worth it.
All right. Is that your last one?
Yeah.
All right. So for me, my first buy low candidate for center, I actually have 2. My first is Rupe Hintz on that Dallas offense. We already kind of talked him as one of our sleepers. I also have Jonathan Taves in deeper leagues. Considering I've just been thinking about this a lot, that he's going to be with that stacked offense with Kane. If any time you're playing on the same line as Kane, that's going to be points. Unless they end up splitting up the lines, meaning that Kane and Taves are separate. I doubt they do that this year. I think they're going to try and play that line together as much as possible. And they're probably one of their last main prime years. Together with Jones on the power play and a high goal scorer in DeBrincat, I think that line could be very potent this year, and I think you get points. Moving on to my wing, I think the most important one here is Tarasenko. He was out last year with an injury, and if you saw what he's doing, he was doing 30, 40 goals back in his prime. So I think that he's still only 27. He's come back from the injury. He's fully healed. He's on that St. Louis team. I think they're going to do well. And I think that if you can flip somebody like let's say you can flip like Svechnikov or if you can somehow grab Caulfield for him. A lot of people undervalue him. He went late in the draft. His ADP is low. People won't understand that he's going to be good. Tarasenko.
I would not trade Svechnikov for Tarasenko.
I would, because I think that he's going to have higher upside than him this year, even though Svechnikov is going to be lower. Svechnikov is on a good team that's going to be relying on him. I think that Tarasenko is in the same position, and he's already further in his prime. And in his prime, Tarasenko's best, like last season, he did better than Svechnikov did last season.
All right, just know that you're hedging all of your bets on Tarasenko. That is a very bold take, but I trust you. But just know you said this on the pod, so guys, keep him accountable of Tarasenko busts.
I've been thinking about it all offseason, man. Tarasenko's my guy. Finally, for defense, I have Werenski. A lot of people, we talked about this in previous episodes. I'm really high on the guy. I think that with a different coach in Columbus, even though if the team's bad, he's going to be one of the highest goal scorers. He's an elite offensive defenseman. And finally, for a buy low goalie, I think you can pick up Demko. He's probably going to have a bad game this game against Edmonton. Not a bad game, like a startable game, but he's not going to get crazy points, and he might look bad with McDavid, possible breakaway goal. So I think if you can look to buy him tomorrow after tonight's bad
or
game.
even buy before the game, be like, look, he's playing Edmonton. Like, I expect he's going to get lit up. I can flip you. I can flip you Jack Campbell for him. Jack Campbell's got the Canadians. They're probably going to win tonight. And I'll take Demko. They're pretty even to begin with. I would do that any day of the week.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's going to bring our podcast to a wrap. I hope you enjoyed. As you can tell, this is our first normal podcast that's not a mock draft that we're going to be posting on IGTV. Hopefully it's a little bit more entertaining than just hearing our voices. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to be back here same time same place next week. We're going to be doing it on Saturdays now. We're going to have a constant post. It's either going to be out Saturday night or Sunday morning. So you're going to be able to wake up Sunday at like 10 o'clock, listen to the podcast, set up all your start sits for the week. You know, it's going to be good. So thank you, everybody. And make sure to be here the next time we drop the puck. Have a good one, everybody.